Today is Tuesday, December 20th. This is a curriculum committee meeting for the West Bend Joint School District Number 1. I'm calling the meeting to order at 8:38 a.m. Today we're going to have a presentation prepared by Dr. Reese.
Thank you. Actually, the presentation is going to be, there's going to be 3 of us presenting. It's on the program analysis review, so it's going to be Heidi Spangola, Aaron Faust, and myself. And then we are going to present the slides for the program review, and then I will talk a little bit about the rubric.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Nope, that's okay.
If I turn it on and then it'll do a great turn it off.
There you
All right, good morning. I'm Heidi Spangola. I am the District Literacy Coordinator here for the West Bend School District. This morning, as Dr. Reese said, we are going to talk through our program evaluation updates. We have 3 different program evaluations going on this school year. Those include the assessment program evaluation, the math program evaluation, and the physical education program evaluation. As Dr. Reese said, 3 of us will kind of present on those 3 different topics. The first one being the assessment program evaluation. At this time, for the assessment program evaluation, there are 2 of us co-facilitating this process, and that includes myself as well as Tina Van Roo, our district assessment coordinator. She's not with us this morning, but we lead this team in working together through this process. So for our assessment evaluation, we had to develop a vision statement, and while it's still in draft form, it may still be shifted between now and our final presentation. This is our goal that we are working towards, is for all students to improve their learning through the system-wide use of data from a research-based and comprehensive assessment system. As a part of that, then, we are working to ensure that the recommendations and the research that we do has an alignment between our standards and our assessment tools, so that we can more effectively measure our student learning outcomes. If we had assessment tools that weren't aligned with our standards, we feel that that wouldn't be as strong for us as a system, so it's one of our goals there with our vision statement. Additionally, we are hoping to have comprehensive tools across the content areas so that we can have a full picture of a learner and making instructional decisions. So as a part of that goal, we are looking to say not only what do we have for each content area, is it the best fit? Do we have any gaps in content areas that we need to take a look at and moving forward from there? So at this point, our team has met 3 times, and we will continue meeting again after the winter break in January. At this time, our team has done kind of the outline of these things at this point. We have drafted our vision, mission, and belief statements around assessment. So we've really taken the time to make sure that we're all looking at the same guiding principles, making sure that we all have the same common understandings. Additionally, we have been working to create a district assessment inventory, which is a list of all of the different assessments that we have, and then where they're in place as far as which grade levels, what time of the year they're given, kind of when we adopted those resources. And as a part of that inventory, we have elicited feedback from other staff members across the system. We have also then sent out a district-wide survey to collect feedback from staff around the assessment tools that are on that inventory. We were looking for feedback around if those tools were developmentally and culturally appropriate. We asked if those tools helped connect to their daily instruction. We asked if those tools also supported the connection between other data that they have. And then we took that inventory that we developed and those survey results, and this is the process we're in right now, is we're analyzing those 2 things collaboratively between each other to see where as a system do we have strengths, where do we have gaps, what barriers are existing at this point, and then aligning those things with that current research so that in our next steps in January then would be to develop and provide recommendations. It should be noted that at this point, we're really looking at our interim assessments, which are kind of like our big universal screeners. So at this point, we are not looking at every single classroom assessment and all of those little pieces. We're really looking at our big assessments at this point in time throughout this process. So I will turn it over then to Erin Faust for the math program evaluation.
Good morning, everyone. As Heidi said, my name is Erin Faust. I am one of the program administrators for the West Bend School District for the Curriculum Department, and I have been leading the math program evaluation with the support of one of our high school coaches, Curtis Marquardt. And we have also met 3 times so far. One of the things we developed was our vision statement, and the team worked really hard to get this into student-friendly language as well. Because they felt really that it was really important that every student is a knower and doer of mathematics. And we wanted students to be able to embrace that and feel like they were part of it and could actually achieve and be part of this vision. So our big intended goals and outcomes are really to determine the current program effectiveness. So are the tools appropriate? Are they helping students to succeed? And if not, what does that mean? So our second big goal is to draft the proposal and determine if we are going to recommend instructional methods that need updating, resources potentially, or programs. And that is the process that we're in at the moment. Is our team has reviewed a lot of data, and we are working on making our first round of drafted recommendations. So the current status, we have already drafted our mission and vision statement. We have collected the history of the current mathematical resources and instructional practices. So we wanted to understand where we were and how we got to where we currently are before determining the path forward. So we've looked at data from a variety of sources. We've looked at data from a teacher survey. We've looked at STAR and Forward data. We've looked at some classroom assessment data, trying to gather the big picture of determining if the program is effective or not. We are currently working on organizing our intended outcomes by grade level, so really looking at priority standards again and saying, is this appropriate? Is this what we need to be doing? And then is it effective, and is our attention focused in the right area? And then we are also currently working on gathering information so we better understand what our tiered instruction looks like. So in the multi-tiered systems of support, what does our tier 1 instruction look like? So what do all students receive every day? What do our students who need tier 2 instruction, what does that look like? Do we have a solid plan? And the same for tier 3, which is our students who need the most assistance in order to be successful. So we wanted not only to look at the everyday approach for all of our students, but the bigger picture as well. And like I said previously, we are also currently working on drafting recommendations based on the data we've collected so far. And then I will turn it over to Dr. Reese to talk about the physical education.
Thank you. So I'm Dr. Jill Reese, and I am presenting on behalf of John Graff, who is running the physical education program review. It's a K-12 program review for PE. And so I had the opportunity to attend one of the meetings, so I'm just going to share out what I know from that team and kind of where they're at. They have met 3 times, and with the leadership of John Graff, and they have worked on developing a education vision statement for PE and then kind of coming up with their intended goals and outcomes. So the vision statement is the goal of the West Bend Physical Education Program is to develop physically literate individuals who have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to enjoy a lifetime of healthful physical activity. One of the reasons I wanted to read that is that team is really working hard to look at what does a vision for physical education look like in terms of lifetime fitness versus learning how to play football or learning how to play like a certain sport. And not that those things are not part of it, but also helping people to create like a healthy lifestyle and healthy kind of vision for physical education beyond school. So looking at really all those different pieces. As they have worked together, they've really drafted a vision and mission statement around physical education, reviewed and discussed current physical education programming within the district, and began an initial data collection and analysis. And one of the things that they are talking about is, I believe it was roughly in the 15-16 school year, the district adopted Shape America standards for physical education. At that time, the state did not have new physical education standards. Since then, in 2020, the state came out with new physical education state standards. So they're just doing an analysis and looking at both sets of those standards, seeing where they come together or not, and seeing what direction they need to go with that. Not that this is the point to necessarily adopt new standards, but to really look at where the ins and outs are of that and what is really needed for student learning. So they're really taking a look at those things too. So they have a little bit of a heavy lift just because of that, and that's part of their analysis. So overall, then, all of these program evaluations will be reviewed by Cabinet. They're going to Cabinet in late January. Each program has a different date, and then I will be sharing with you the rubric that Cabinet will be using to score them and give them recommendations. So I'm going to transition over to the rubric. So, all right. So if you see on the screen, we have what's called a program evaluation rubric, and this is specifically for Cabinet. This has been shared with all of the team members that are working through the program analysis and review, just so they are aware of what Cabinet will be looking at. There's different areas that are scored. One thing to note on the rubric is, after talking with Cabinet, is there is not a final total score, because we really believe that all of the areas could kind of stand on their own. So there could be a recommendation or a recommended step out of each of the individual areas. So the first area is background connections to district vision, strategic plan, mission, and vision, and looking at how the work that's going on connects to those district things. The next area is really goals and outcomes. And that area really gets into alignment with the district goals, also alignment with department goals, and alignment with goals of the different programs, and making sure those are aligned. And so that area is scored with a total of 24 points, and then any notes or recommendations would come specifically for that area. So that area goes through student learning, safe and secure, engagement and customer satisfaction, proposed solutions, measures of implementation, and feasibility and capacity. And if you notice, those top things really align with the district strategic plan also, in terms of what this rubric is looking for. The next section is focusing on supporting students with disabilities, learning differences, and the variability of all students. So it's really looking at making sure that through these analysis, we're looking at all the different groups of students, we're looking at all of the different needs that students have, different needs some of our special ed students have, some of our intervention students, all those things, and making sure that we're identifying criteria to help those students. The next section is innovation, and looking at how the program supports data-driven decisions, and looking at innovative practices or best practices to help move the system forward. The next section, and really the last section beyond feedback, is really looking at cost and sustainability. And so sustainability is really looking at, are we going to be able to leverage whatever recommendations are made to work in the system for a number of years, to give consistency and implementation and follow an implementation timeline so students are learning. And the other piece about that is really cost. Is it cost effective to make these changes, to maybe bring in new tools, to work through a new system, or to revitalize the system we have and what makes the most sense? So with that, then we get to feedback. From Cabinet, feedback is due to these teams within 72 hours. And then with that feedback, the team will make decisions on whether they have to go forward for a purchase, look at requests for purchase proposals, those types of things, whether they need to come back to the curriculum committee or go to the full board with any requests. And so really this timeline is a hefty lift on the team, and they've done a great job working through this. We've had to kind of front load because we didn't start this till November, so their meetings are kind of squished together and they've had a heavy lift doing this. But hopefully then by the end of January, they'll know what they need to do for the next steps for spring. So if there is potentially any adoption or purchase, that's all done by the end of this school year to be implemented next school year. When we go through these next year, we should be in a little bit better place because we should be able to start in about September, October, and give a little bit more time for some of these things to take place. So, any questions? It's a lot of information.
I like that we have the comprehensive program plan. And I think it's important to have a rubric for measuring success. And I think the only challenge I see is that because this is a K through 12, it's hard to give broad feedback and do a broad evaluation. But I understand it's important to be broad because it does cover so much. So can I assume that within your rubric this rubric would be an accumulation of other more detailed evaluations?
So I can give you an example, like the committee that Heidi and Tina are working on. They were in the beginning feeling like they probably didn't have representation K-12 from all the different levels on assessments, right? Tina had some background survey information and stuff, so she reached out to people individually to get more people at the table in terms of their grade levels, things like that. We've tried to be careful about that because I agree with you, K-12 is a huge span. I know like Erin's group has people from each level on her team for math, and PE also has people from each level on the team for PE. So I believe we're trying to seek out people from all those different levels and give feedback. In addition, when we get to the second part of this, after the rubric, there's an opportunity for more people to join in. And so let's just say we have an opportunity to maybe look at new curriculums and bring in vendors, then we open that up widely to all the teachers and staff and administration to come and see what that is and give feedback on that too. So there's another set of rubrics that goes with that too if we get to that process. But we would give them pretty detailed feedback on this rubric to know if they need to maybe seek out other people or things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, what you're doing, and determining what success is a challenge.
For sure. Yeah, it is.
But doing this at all has not always been part of our process, so I'm glad that we're doing it now. And as long as we're aware of making sure that every area is represented.
Yeah, and that hasn't been perfect, right? It's something that we're definitely working on, and I think some teams feel better about it, but we're definitely trying to, like the assessment team has been really good about kind of finding other avenues to reach out and connect with people, and they have a group of people too that hasn't necessarily come to some of the meetings, but is doing kind of virtual work in the background too on some assessment things, because there are people that are well valued in the system and have a lot of great knowledge about assessments and things, so they've been helping out behind the scenes also.
Good. I know there are people for the reading, let's see, I know the math, reading. Okay, so we're doing the math program, but, okay, we're assessing the overall program, the math program, then the phys ed program.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, we're not doing language arts at all.
Yeah, so language arts, we kind of did fast track last year. We didn't go through a process like this, but we did fast track with that purchase of the Calkins and Fontes and Pinnell kits and looking at that. And that was really K-8, not K-12. So on the docket, we originally started with ELA 912. In meeting with them, they made the decision to do a course review process versus a curriculum big process like this. So they're working through that right now. That potentially could change like course selection in the course selection guide at the high school, and we would definitely bring that forward. Their items for that go to their admin team in February, and then would come forward to curriculum committee depending on what they're looking at. So they're following just a slightly different process, because the way course selection works for the high school, if they work on things now, it goes into the course selection guide next year for students to choose, and then the course isn't actually in place until the 24-25 school year for them students to take. So they're looking at some kind of alignment, maybe possibly new courses or sunsetting courses, things like that.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, and I seem to recall that we're seeking more connection and cohesiveness with the flow up to the high school, and making, otherwise there's finger pointing between Badger and the high school for who's responsible for where the kids are at when they get received. So, yeah, I'm glad we're gonna link all that together.
Yeah, very good point. That unfortunately happens sometimes.
Thank you.
Thank you.